Hi there, this is Phil with CapitolTrack, and today I'm going to take you through a demonstration of CapitolTrack version 3.5. It has the same great utility as CapitolTrack Classic, but we've added some new features and tools that I think you'll enjoy. I'll start with things like our calendars, and then I'll get into the real core aspects of tracking legislation, including how you search for bills that you might be interested in, how you track the bills that you'll need to keep an eye on, and finally, how you run reports on the bills that you're tracking. I'll be sure to show you some examples of different types of reports that you can run on your tracked bills. Without further ado, here's one of the calendars I'd like to show you. The political calendar shows some items like member birthdays or when they're observing a given holiday and when they're going to be leaving for break and returning to session. Also, some of the joint rules that indicate what bills must do by certain dates before they fail these deadlines. We also keep historical daily files as PDFs, so if you need to know what committee hearings looked like last month, you can find that kind of information here. Now, the counterpart to the political calendar is our measure calendar, here under Workspace and Reports. The measure calendar includes all the measures set for hearing in the Assembly and Senate daily files, including floors and committees. One of my favorite features on our calendar report allows you to set up a calendar feed of this report's events and import those events into your Outlook calendar, Google Calendar, or Apple iCal. The feed will then keep your calendar up to date as new calendar events are added to your report. It's a great way to monitor legislation without logging in and running your calendars. That's everything I'd like to show you about calendar reports, so let's move on to searching for bills. Now, there are many ways to find bills in CapitolTrack, but under searches, I usually like to add something like a code section search or a keyword search just to get you started. These are simple template reports which can either find bills by the code sections that they're impacting or the kinds of language that they contain. There are many other ways to find things in CapitolTrack. There's a search bar at the top of the screen, so if you know the measure offhand, you can always go right to it. There's also an AI search where if you type a word or a phrase, we can find you a whole bunch of bills containing language related to your search. For example, if I do something like free speech and I decide to take a look at that, it's not a verbatim phrase that would see in legislation, but I can find items like traditional First Amendment forum or libel and slander, which I might not have considered searching for, but I can now include in my keyword search for later. The reports under searches are saved search reports which find me all measures containing my keywords or code sections. So when I run my keyword search, here is a list of all bills which contain some of my search terms. And this is what a CapitolTrack report typically looks like. We always show a measure, an author, and a topic sentence. Everything else here is something that you as the user get to choose to show on a CapitolTrack report. And this is what I mean. When I click on Filter at the top of the report, I have all of these choices and selectables that I can include in my report to say, show the status, location, bill history, or a different summary of the bill text. But most importantly, I include things like the synopsis for a keyword search because that shows me which of my keyword search terms is actually included in this bill text. When I navigate to the Keyword Filters tab, this is where I include some of those search terms I'd like to find. I include water within 5 words of something that looks like storage or reclamation or pollution. These codes that we're showing you, like the W/5, are called Boolean search functions, and there's a cheat sheet right here. If you hover over the I, we'll let you know if you type this, here are the kinds of results we'll return. So I click Run to search for bills containing this language, and this gives me a bill screening report. Here are all the bills in which I might be interested in, and it allows me to look through these bills and make a decision. Would I like to track some of these bills, or is it something that incidentally contained my search terms, and maybe I don't need to track it at all? Transportation planning project in a water search might not necessarily be what I'm looking for, but maybe atmospheric rivers and research, that could be something I want to track. So let's take a closer look at AB 30. Clicking on a measure in CapitolTrack will take you to the same place as if you'd searched for the bill up top in the search bar. When you land on a bill information screen like this one, you'll see the measure, the author, and the topic sentence in the same way we did on the report. But we have all that detailed information about this bill that you didn't include in the report. So you can have access to the status and the location of a bill, a progress bar, and even things like past versions of text should you need to see how it was introduced and how it changed over time. Now, each of those versions of text is available in different flavors, such as a simple web page to read, or a PDF in case you want to send a copy to a colleague, or even as a Word document in case you'd like to mock up your own version of bill to submit to the author's office. And if you'd like to see how the amended text would have changed existing law if it had chaptered as that version, we also keep analysis documents, all the committees and all the floors through which that bill has passed. And you can see all the different votes. While we store them here in shorthand of where the bill was, a date, and how the vote outcome went with yeses, nos, and abstains, you can select any of these and click on the HTML, and we will show you which members voted in which way on that bill. Now, as I scroll back up, there are also fields under bill info. Things like different versions of summaries that you can show in your report, from a full legislative digest down to a brief summary or a short summary. We also have an AI summary which uses ChatGPT to summarize bill text at a 12th grade level. This has been a popular summary type since it was introduced last year. The bill history is, of course, everywhere that bill has been since it was introduced. It's essentially a collection of past statuses. This last item, however, is special. My Attachments and Links is your very own place to upload position letters or an analysis document outlining what you're thinking about the bill currently. And there's a couple of things that you can do with that document once uploaded. It can either stay here on the bill information page where nobody can see it except for those of you who log into CapitolTrack, or you can select attachments to include any of these documents in your CapitolTrack reports at your own discretion. Now, I skipped over the most important button on the entire page. If AB 30 is something that, after all of this research, I've decided to track, I can click on Add Tracking Form. This takes me to the tracking form for AB 30, and it's like a digital sticky note that I'm going to attach to this measure. I can fill it out with things like who it should be assigned to in the office, what position we'd like to take, a priority level, or even a subject tag that I'd like to assign to the bill. Now, there are three things I can do with the fields of the tracking form once they've been filled out. Firstly, I can show these fields on a report by selecting the fields to display. Secondly, I can choose a field to sort my report by, which shows all of my bills grouped by how they were tagged within that field. And thirdly, I can filter for a selection on the tracking form to make a report of only bills marked in that same way. These three tools are really what make CapitolTrack reports work so effectively, as you tag bills and select the ways in which you'd like to categorize them. Now, when I click on Save, that does save a tracking form for AB 30. It's now a tracked bill. It has a subject, a position, and a priority. If I go back to the workspace, a couple of things have happened. The first is we reload the keyword search, and it would send me back to where I left off, so I can continue my search through the rest of the bills which I might need to review for tracking. However, the second thing that happened is AB 30 was removed from the list. I'm no longer searching for it. I found it and made it a tracked bill. Where it went instead is under a category called My Reports. The simplest report is called the status report of all tracked bills. Clicking on the status report shows me all the bills for which I've filled out a tracking form, including AB 30. Here's the bill that I just tracked, and it includes all that information that I just chose to show from the tracking form. If I need to change this report in any way, I can click on Filter above to display new fields, sort my report, or add special filters. All three items that I mentioned on the tracking form can be done here under the report filters. The first of which, I can display fields from the tracking form such as the position, priority, and subject. Remember when I mentioned attached letters, position letters, or analysis documents from earlier? Select attachments right here, and that would include any of those attached documents in this report. The second feature I mentioned allows me to sort my bills by something like subject of a measure, and each of the subject tags that I'd added to those bills would actually be shown as sortable categories on the report. And so what I end up with are all these categories by which I can sort my bills, and I can do things like collapse any of them if I need to get to one that's further down, like water storage. AB 30 shows up immediately. Now, the third and final feature that we have is filtering. And when I mentioned you can filter any of these based on the way that you were tracked, you can do so under the Tracking Form Filters tab. That way, if I need a single subject item, I only want to see those bills which I've tagged as water storage, I could run a report for all those bills just marked as water storage. Likewise, I could do the same for only those bills marked as high priority, or a hard position such as support and oppose. It's entirely up to you, but filtering a report can make it very narrowly defined and give you just what you are looking for. And that covers the different types of reports that you can run within CapitolTrack. And those are the fundamentals of how our system works. Search for bills, track the bills you find interesting, and run reports on the bills that you're tracking. When it comes time to share these CapitolTrack reports with your colleagues, use the Preview tab to format the report for export, to print, or as a PDF, or even a Word document. Saved reports like those under My Reports can also be scheduled using the calendar icon. This will regularly send the report to a set of email addresses at a predetermined time and date. This is a great feature to automate keeping your colleagues informed, and emails can be sent to those who can't log into your CapitolTrack account. Now, in addition to searching for bills, tracking those of interest, and running reports, here on the workspace, we also have things like member and committee rosters, which we keep up to date. When you're looking at the Members tab, you have information like a member, all the committees on which they serve, and all the staff who serve in their office. And that information can be recombined in different ways using these tabs across the top. For instance, you can find the same information organized by committee under the Committees tab, including the staff who work in that committee. The member staff category is particularly interesting. Here we keep all the staff who work in members' offices in alphabetical order. And this format we're looking at, we call it the grid. And it comes with some helpful utility for organizing all this member and staff data. I can drag and drop any of these headers in order to display that information grouped by, say, House first and Title second. And in doing so, I need to find all Assembly Chiefs of Staff. I have a list of them right here. All their email addresses are available, and I'll be able to export that list to Excel spreadsheet in order to create a group within Outlook. In addition to these great member and staff rosters, there's one more tab on the right-hand side called the Floor and Committee Videos. It's a new feature that we've added. We've indexed all the floor and committee videos that are archived within the legislature, and you can search through those for any of the words that you might like to find. For instance, I was just doing a search on water storage earlier. I could do something like find all the times that water storage came up as a word or phrase within any of the different committee or floor hearings. They'll group by how many times my topic came up first, but if I wanted to, I could show the most recent topics first. And here is a recent committee in which my search term was mentioned, and I can click on the committee to watch the archived footage. The transcript of what was said in that committee hearing is off to the left-hand side, and I can actually click to start the video at each of the moments my search term was discussed. It's a really useful tool for looking up, say, your organization and when you were mentioned. It's really incredible for being able to skip through these parts of the committees that you don't need to watch in order to find those that are most relevant to your interests. And you can also share video at the current time. If you find something that's particularly interesting, click Share Video, and this will copy a link which you can then paste into an email or text message. In addition to member rosters and committee videos, under CT Analyze, you can also find things like the registered support and registered opposition of various. But just like I did with members and member staff, I can regroup this information by different column headers, and in this way, say, find all the bills opposed or supported by a particular organization. And then I can search for any organization that might have written a letter of support or opposition. For example, if I wanted to find everything that was supported or opposed by Pacific Gas and Electric, what I would get is a list here of all PG&E's supported and opposed bills for which they submitted a position letter. In addition, if you're only interested in the analysis documents themselves, not necessarily the support and opposition sections that are listed at the bottom of them, we have an analysis search where you can find any type of keyword that you'd like to search for, and we'll return all the documents containing that keyword for your perusal. This is an excellent tool for doing some research into when and how your organization was impactful. And so these are some of the tools that we've added to CapitolTrack since version 3.5. We have new items like different ways to send reports automatically, or the ability to analyze bill lists based on supporting an opposing organization. The committee and floor indexes are incredible for research purposes, and we even have records of how all members voted across all bills, should you be interested in building, say, a vote scorecard to grade members for voting favorably. And of course, if you have any questions about using CapitolTrack or setting up reports, or you just need help understanding how something works or why something is a certain way, our contact information is always at the bottom of the screen. You can give us a call, send us an email, and we have our other training videos like this one on our YouTube channel. They're usually 1 to 2 minutes each, a very narrow topic rather than this entire demonstration of what CapitolTrack version 3.5 is and does. If there's anything that we can help you with, please don't hesitate to give us a call or send us an email. It's been great talking to you. Until next time, I'm Phil, and thank you for choosing CapitolTrack.